Hello and welcome to Startline, brought to you by the Manx Motorcycle Club. I'm Beth Espy, and this podcast delves into the world of road racing on the Isle of Man. What does it take to take on the mountain course? From the racers and the teams to the mechanics and sponsors, it's all here on Startline. Thank you so much for downloading this episode. If it's your first listen, I do hope you enjoy it and take some time to look at some of the other interviews that we've got in the series so far. And just to let you know, coming up in the next few episodes, we're going to be talking to a TT sidecar passenger who's going solo for the first time at the Classic TT this year. He still, though, has an aim when it comes to three wheels. And also speaking to someone who is an integral part of the racing scene here on the Isle of Man. It's Gary Partridge from Happy Dog Image Solutions, and I've been up to Happy Dog HQ to have a look around. I also got a sneaky peek at the official MGP merchandise you'll be able to buy this year. Spoiler, it's utterly brilliant. Honestly, some of the ideas Gary has. I also find out about Gary's own racing background, where he describes himself at one point, and I am directly quoting here, as the paddock trollop. So look out for that episode coming very soon. But in this one then, we are with Jack Fowler. He lives in Teesside. He's 34. And Jack shares with us his motorcycle racing journey so far, discussing his most recent experiences at the Isle of Man TT. He was a newcomer in 2024. He did his first MGP some years earlier. He talks about the challenges of balancing racing with family life, which we hear so often. And also, really interestingly, talks about the evolving technology in the motorcycle industry. And Jack reflects on the mental challenges riders can face during racing events and the importance of support from family as well. He also has some advice for mountain course newcomers and talks about his own goals for the future. We also find out a little bit about his eating habits when he's over here on the island. I won't say any more about that at the moment. But first of all, I asked Jack to tell us about his day job away from racing.
I work for a motorcycle manufacturer in product development, developing the sort of new and prototype machines. I've competed at the Isle of Man since 2018. I did the Manx Grand Prix for 4 years, and then I stepped up to the TT in 2024, and I've done 24 and 25, so the past 2 years of the TT.
Amazing. Your job must be so interesting when you're involved in this world, and particularly from a race side of you, seeing the developments that are coming through. Does that give you a little bit of an edge on what's coming next?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, I do a lot of riding, on-road riding, which can be really tough in the UK. Even a good year is tough. This past couple of months, as I'm sure you're aware, Beth, the weather's just been so depressing. But it gives, I wouldn't say it gives me an edge, but it gives me an insight into the future of certain things. What technology is coming next. I mean, the brand I work for, you wouldn't necessarily consider them to be a technologically advanced company, but behind the scenes, we do look at the future and look at other manufacturers and what's coming. And it's a very interesting, but also it's quite an uncertain world at the minute, I think, with sort of EVs and hybrids. And I don't think anyone can really be confident in saying which way they think cars and motorcycles are going to go just yet.
And there's been a lot of change, hasn't there, in, like you say, in such a short space of time, really?
Yeah, and changing all the time as well. You know, different governments, tensions, as we're seeing what's happening in the Middle East this weekend. There's always something going on that's just sort of upsetting the apple cart, so to speak. And I feel sorry for manufacturers, really, because it must be difficult to commit to something and want to start spending money in developing something, again, whether it be a car, 4 wheels or 2 wheels, when you just don't really know. Again, like a change of government in any country can totally rip up the rule book and start again. So it's it's a little bit uncertain, but hopefully, sort of from what we do, hopefully the internal combustion 2-wheel category will keep going strong for a number of years yet.
Yeah, there's definitely an appetite for it, isn't it? I mean, you only have to see that when you see the older machines over here. I think the thought of that sort of industry going completely EV, yeah, I don't think that'd be terribly welcome in some quarters.
No, I don't think it would be just yet. I think certainly from a spectacle point of view, I think the TT did a great job they were sort of probably well ahead of the curve, really, when they launched TT0. It was like 2010 or something.
Yeah, it was. It's pretty early, wasn't it?
Long time ago. They were really ahead of the curve, and then they've obviously paused it now to to let the industry sort of catch up. And I think if they were to restart that, it would be probably a considerably bigger and more competitive grid than it was. But I think the purists in all of us would have to admit that they wouldn't be thrilled about sitting in the hedgerows and watching that, I don't think.
No, you'd have to have somebody with a stereo on the back of the bike, wouldn't you? Just making the noise that was supposed to.
You know, when you used to put a Coke can in your tyre as a kid, I guess, on your bicycle.
I don't think I ever did that, Jack. That's clearly why I was going wrong. So was this a sort of work that you always wanted to do?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if any kid really knows what they want to do. I went into civil engineering, and then it was actually through racing I managed to meet people that let me move into the two-wheel industry now. So I've got racing to thank for that, really. It's brought me a lot of good in my life, so I've got that to thank for. And I work with Sean Anderson and Owen Monaghan as well, so two fellow Alleman competitors, which is really good to have those guys as colleagues.
Yeah, I can imagine the conversations over tea break and whatever. That's brilliant, isn't it? When you're all into the same sort of thing and can truly understand what it is you do. Yeah, that's a really nice friendship.
Yeah, it's great. And I think it's like one of those things in the winter when you're sort of a bit bored and looking for something to talk about and something a bit interesting. It's good. And like you say, our tea breaks are quite interesting and full of, the rumour mill and gossip and that sort of stuff over the winter.
Oh, have to see if we can get some of that out of you before the end of this podcast, Jack. Just remind us then, You say you didn't really grow up necessarily thinking that biking was going to be the direction that you would go in.
No, not necessarily. My dad competed at the Island in sort of the early 80s. He did the Manx Grand Prix a few times. So it's obviously always been in the family. And then he moved away from that to start a family when me and my brother were born, and then didn't necessarily grow up around it for one reason or another. And then I started coming to watch the TT when I was about 11, and then that was it really. I sort of fell in love with the island and the place, and I was a bit of a late starter to it. I don't think I started riding even road bikes until I was like 19, 20. Started racing when I was about 22, 23 maybe, something like that. So I was a bit of a late starter and probably too late, really. I think when you look at the people that go on to be really successful, they start really, really young, or they come from that background. I knew it was something that I loved and something that I wanted to do. And as a young teenager sat in the hedgerows watching the TT, I never thought for 1 second I'd do it, to be totally honest. It just seemed so far out of my reach. So I think I need to sit back and be quite proud of where we've come, to be honest.
Absolutely. And I'm always fascinated by the idea of somebody so young and probably quite impressionable as well, sitting there and for the first time seeing some bikes go past. Do you remember where you were and who you saw?
Oh, God. I don't know if I can remember exactly where, certainly for the first couple of years, because I was so green to it and trying to understand like the timing system and the start procedure and all that sort of stuff. And I think it probably took me a couple of years until I really started understanding. But then, say, 2005, 6, 7, when I was starting to understand it more, obviously, I'm sure most people of my age are the same. That was when John McGuinness was really dominant, obviously. And then I remember sort of Bruce Anstey, Ryan Farquhar, Connor Cummins coming through, Guy Martin, obviously, for a number of years. And I remember we've got a friend that lives out in Kirkmichael, just on the exit of the Kirkmichael village, and I remember watching there multiple times. Every year, really, we always make a point of going there every year, and we've moved all around the place. I've got, the best memories as a kid really is we used to like get a little disposable barbecue or whatever and go out and watch the racing all day. I've watched in an awful lot of the course, and it's some of the best times of my life for sure. And back when the entertainment on the prom used to be like just amazing, really, just something that you couldn't do anymore. Just the best memories as a kid, really, growing up and watching the racing. And again, like I've just said, I never for a million years thought that it'd be something I'd be able to do myself.
And it must be really weird when you have watched somebody, you talk about John McGuinness, who is still a huge part of the paddock and people just still absolutely love him. And to have watched him and watch him at his absolute peak and then be part of the paddock where he is, that must be, really strange.
Yeah. I mean, is it 30 years this year, is it, of John McGuinness?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable, really. Great dedication to the sport. And I think we'll see John forever, really, in one capacity or another. I think he's still a huge pull for the crowd, still a good sort of down-to-earth guy, Whilst a lot of people have come and gone over the years, he's always been a staple in the paddock, and, and he's still insanely fast as well. He's still consistently getting top 10 in a superbike, which is unbelievable, really. I think he's a great role model for an awful lot of people, and I hope he's here for a long time, whether it be a brand ambassador or a team manager or something. It's great to still see people like that.
And it's also, I guess, from your point of view, because, I mean, I know you say you started late, but you're still only young. And to see somebody who's still able to do what they love and be that little bit older, it just means that it doesn't have a particular shelf life in some ways.
No, I don't think it does. And I think it's very different. The TT is a very different challenge from a lot of other forms of two-wheel racing. The biggest challenge with the TT by a long, long way is the mental challenge. And I don't necessarily just mean out on course. It's, a magnitude of things, the trying to sleep, the build up to a race, the nerves, the concentration, all of these sort of things. It's, for sure, it's still incredibly physical. But, if I race on a short circuit, like Donington Park, for example, if I did a 20 or 30 minute race there, I think physically you are significantly more tired than if you do the TT physically tired. However, by the end of a TT fortnight, I can't speak for everyone, but myself, I'm mentally just an absolute zombie. It takes me so long to recover from that. So that's maybe that is one of the reasons why it has the longer shelf life, because it's a different type of exertion, and it's maybe why people come into it a little bit later as well. Yeah, it's positive. I'm not sure I'll reach the 30-year milestone, to be honest, but it does go to show that it's possible. And
as you mentioned then, Jack, obviously your dad competed on the Isle of Man. So when you decided that this was something you wanted to do, what was the family reaction?
Yeah, generally, really supportive. My family have been absolutely great through all of this. And I think that it's got to be unbelievably tough for them. But they've been great from day one. I think they realise how much it means to me. I hopefully give them a little bit more comfort that I consider myself to be quite sensible, or as sensible as you can possibly be to do something like this. But yeah, the family, including my wife, have been absolutely great in support, which really helps. And I'm also fully aware of the strain that I put on them. A lot of riders talk about this being a selfish sport, which it really is. I'm really conscious of that, to be honest. I try not to push my limits too much, but my dad's been my number one supporter ever since I started. Really, he's been by my side every time, and I can't imagine how tiring it must be for him as well. Doing a TT fortnight as a rider or mechanic, anything is insanely tiring.
And there's also the side of it, isn't there? Certainly from a family point of view, and you mentioned your wife, there are sacrifices that you have to make, particularly because it's such an expensive sport to be a part of. So, perhaps those holidays and the really fancy cars and whatever, they do have to be shelved for a time because there's just not enough to go round.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of the big balancing act, really, that I just touched on there, is that I look at two different ends of the spectrum, really. I look at some people that I think are maybe at times too much into the racing, and are, whilst you need to be totally committed to the TT, I'm conscious that it doesn't totally consume my life, really. Whilst it is, undoubtedly, it is a huge, huge part of my life, I am very conscious of trying to balance everything, family life. And I'm at that point of my time at the minute where I'm trying to be a little bit more cautious with my own spending due to the age I'm at now. And you do need to think about your future and your security a little bit more. And then, likewise trying to do everything that a normal family should be doing as well throughout the rest of the year, and taking time out together and trying to go on holidays. And yeah, it's incredibly tough, and it's a juggling act and something that you need to balance. But I'm very conscious of not pushing the boundaries too far, because that great support that I've got from my family, I don't want to take it for granted.
And then just in terms of how it works from the point of view of getting enough races in a season to make sure that you can ultimately do what you want to do, how much time do you spend racing typically?
So, since I stepped up to the TT, I've probably done slightly less racing, which sounds bizarre, but it's to do with the costs, really. So I used to race all year, from March till October, multiple rounds throughout the year. And I'm talking just short circuit rounds here. But then since I stepped up to the TT, because it is such a huge expense, I typically do most of my racing now earlier in the year. So probably April will be a very busy month for myself to get the signatures to be able to do the TT. And then in the past couple of years, to be honest, I've done the TT and I've not really done a great deal else after that, which isn't ideal. But again, it's finance, it's home life. You know, as I've just touched on, you come back from the TT absolutely exhausted. So sometimes your appetite just isn't quite there to do anything. Certain things don't quite scratch the same itch as the TT either. So I need to be trying to do a little bit more, but I do as much as I physically can, to be honest with you. Usually when you come back from the TT, I think most people will agree with me, you're in a pretty torrid state financially, so it takes a couple of months just to get yourself back on track, really.
And everybody talks about the blues, don't they, after any major racing event, when you've been completely immersed in it, to suddenly be back in real life. It's kind of a tough adjustment.
Do you know what? It's hard to put into words. I don't think the average person could understand it, to be honest. I used to get it when I used to race a short circuit weekend. You know, you'd do like Friday to Sunday, and then on the Monday I used to feel like really hungover. So I'd be in the office and I'd be like just wanting to eat rubbish and I'd be really tired. But then it would just be the one day. Whereas when you get back from the TT, I'm not exaggerating. It's honestly like 2 really, really difficult weeks. I had an instance when I came back last year. I was just walking my dog through my village and I walked past one of my friend's sisters and she said hello to me and I just totally blanked her and just kept walking. And it was only a few minutes further down the road I thought, oh my God, I've just like, why did I do that? And I rang my friend and said, can you let us know, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to come across rude there, but I was like totally out of it. It was just really hard to describe, but honestly, it's 2 really, really challenging weeks because your lifestyle is just totally flipped upside down, really.
Yeah, it's almost not real in some ways, isn't it? And then when you've just got to the end of it and got through it and hopefully done as well as you wanted to, I guess, just nothing left to give.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that the last 2 years at the TT, as you'll be well aware with the weather we've had, have actually just been really difficult. You're coming home mentally exhausted, but not necessarily from the riding and the speed you were doing and the adrenaline. A lot of it is just the fatigue, the lack of sleep, the constant adrenaline changes. You think every time there's a delay or a cancellation, your adrenaline and nerves are just spiking and dropping, and it's such a difficult thing to control. And I do wonder if that's why I've been that way, because it's just been so difficult in that sense, really.
That's really interesting, Jack. And I wonder what sort of person you would say you are, talking about sort of control, and even just the way you mentioned a little bit earlier that when you were first over here, even as a child watching the TT, you kind of wanted to understand it. It sounds like you're quite an analytical sort of person who needs to sort of understand how things work in every scenario.
Yeah, it's probably a good assessment, really. I'm quite hands-on with the bikes as well. I'm sort of, because I've got them at home with me year round, so I'm sort of, you know, I do a lot of the work on the bikes when I'm at the event as well as riding, which can be really tough. But it's such a difficult time to stay relaxed, and you know, I consider myself generally a really nice person. I've got time for everyone, but sometimes at the TT it can be really difficult to make time for people, and people are coming round to your awning and they just want to say hello, and I really worry that I come across a bit grumpy, but it's just so tough. It's so tough to put into words that mental stress. And I actually listened to another podcast with Ian Simpson recently, who competed at the TT a while back, and one of the things he said at the end was that if anyone is a bit off with you or doesn't see in themselves, you should grant them that kind of space, if you know what I mean, because of the stresses. And, you know, he was a multiple TT winner, so he's certainly speaking from experience. I've had cases in the past where I've had to, like, text people on the night and just say, like, sorry about earlier, I was just in the middle of something or whatever, and I'd love to sit down and have a cup of tea and coffee with everyone, but it's difficult. It's really difficult.
And I think that's a great thing to sort of give that level of insight, I think, into what goes on in a racer's mind during events as big as the TT and I guess the MGP as well, because there's so much riding on it, if I can use that pun, just throwing that in there. But there is though, isn't there? Because you've got all the preparation, and these are events that only turn up once a year. And, you know, if it's short circuit, I guess there's another weekend, maybe a couple of weekends down the line. But actually, when you've put so much into it and you want to do as well as you can, and then there's other things thrown into the mix like the weather, which you can't control, I think it's really helpful to understand just what impact that can have.
Yeah, there's so many variables, and your your brain's just like a washing machine for the fortnight. I really struggle to sleep when I'm over there. I go to bed absolutely exhausted physically, but my brain is just racing, and it's so difficult. It's so difficult to try and stay relaxed. And I mean, the weather is one thing, but there's so many variables around there of what can be out of your control. And I think I've learned to deal with it fairly well now, where, you just have to sit and relax, even subconsciously, as well as you think you're doing for it. It is incredibly difficult. And whilst we are very fortunate people to be doing what we're doing, a lot of people probably think that we're just having the time of our lives for the fortnight. And there is many times when you're out on circuit when it feels like that, but it is also torture as well, in a way.
I'm going to ask you then, Jack, if there is so much going on in that regard, and you have those highs and lows, I guess some people might wonder, why put yourself through it?
Do you know what? It's a very good question, and it's one I've probably asked myself a little bit the last couple of years. Again, we've had a rough couple of TTs now, and you do come up, I've come away from it pretty happy, really. I've had, good finishes and results, and by my own standards. But there is definitely times where you think, just what on earth am I doing? And I think a lot of people would probably not understand. For me, the TT is so much more than just that fortnight. It's one of the things that really keeps me driven throughout the year, whether that be to eat well, to exercise, to work hard. I'm a big believer in that you need things in life to, other than your bills, you need other things to really motivate you and cheer you on and push your limits a little bit, maybe. And I'm really attracted to the whole challenge of it all, in a way, which maybe sounds a bit bizarre. For a lot of people, it's probably just going as fast as they can on a motorbike, but for me, it's quite a lot of things. But I kind of love the extreme challenge in a bizarre way. Sounds weird saying that out loud, but
no, I think it's really understandable. I'm interested in something else as well. You're talking about sort of in the preparation for it, you exercise, you eat well and whatever. During that fortnight, when you are out, usually qualifying in the evenings, and you've got some day ones and your races are all over the place, how do you manage your nutrition side of things?
Yeah, it's challenging. I just do the best that you can, really. My sort of number one priority would probably be fluid and electrolytes first of all, and carbohydrates, and then I try and eat as well as I can. But even if I don't think I'm nervous, I guess I obviously am, because I do struggle to eat, which can be really challenging because you can't really be doing that on an empty stomach. And then sometimes you've got to be careful about caffeine and things like that, because if you say you assumed a session was going to start at 6:30 and you planned for that, so you'd maybe get a caffeine or a carbohydrate spike at that time, but then there's a 30-minute delay. You need to be very careful that you're then not going to sort of sugar crash at a certain time. So it is challenging, but I do the best I can with electrolytes, carbohydrates, and eat sort of carb-heavy foods. And then normally, once a session or a race is finished, I become unbelievably hungry, absolutely ravenous when the nerves have settled. So normally in practice week, it's you finish a session at whatever, 8:30, and then it's just a mad panic. Where the hell can I go and get some food really quickly?
Fortunately, though, lots of burger vans and whatever around the paddock.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of convenience there, but I try to eat well for the couple of weeks that I'm there, which can be difficult. And we always have these, me and my dad always have these great plans. We took an air fryer last year and we have the barbecue, but it's just the last thing you want to do, when you've got so much else to do. When you come in from a session, the last thing you really want to be doing is cooking a meal. So we normally just dart to the talk of the town or somewhere local where we can get something that's maybe a little bit healthier.
I love the fact you bring an air fryer with you. Amazing. I know where I'll be bringing my chips if I need to cook them while we're there.
Well, yeah, I need to bring a chef this year even.
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? One season, I guess, does blend into the next. What are your plans for 2026 then, Jack?
God, it does, doesn't it? It's frightening. Yeah, so I'm planning on, I've had my entry accepted for the TT, and then I'm hopefully going to be there again. So my machine is in the workshop being prepared at the minute, but I'm just sort of trying to get everything together at the minute, and time just goes so fast. It's just how quick time goes. So I'm just trying to get everything together to be able to do anything. But I find myself struggling a little bit at the minute to get the support that I need this year for one reason or another. There's there's a lot going on in the world, and I think people are quite cautious of that at the minute. Companies are maybe trying to be a bit cautious with what they spend on advertising and everything at the moment. So as things stand, I'm really struggling, to be honest, but I'm quite quietly optimistic that I'll have something in place. It's a similar feeling I have at the start of most years, really. You look at what's ahead of you and what you need to spend, and you think, just how on earth am I going to manage this? It manages to come together somehow. I really need to get moving with it, because the last 2 months of this year have just literally, I feel like I've blinked and they've disappeared.
And, you know, we talk to so many people about the fact that when it comes to sponsorship and that financial support, there is a perception perhaps that you're talking about thousands and thousands of pounds, but actually those smaller sponsors and those bits of cash here, there and everywhere can make a huge difference. And I just wonder, from your point of view, Jack, what you would say a sponsor of any amount, what would they get out of it?
Yeah, so there's sort of all sorts of packages available, really. It's ultimately the biggest question would be how much coverage are they looking to get out of it, really. I mean, you know, I've had some people that have given me money privately, of friends and family friends that give me money privately, that really kind of them, that they don't actually want anything out of it. They're just really happy to support. But then leading up all the way to full exposure on social media, I've got quite a big following on my Facebook page now, and my machines are always presented exceptionally well, and it sort of would determine the sort of coverage space that they want. But to your initial question, of course, there's options for good advertisement options that are considerably more affordable than people would think. The TT now is so big, the following that the TT's got, I think the opportunity for good exposure is huge.
And you used to be a bit of a fan. I don't know whether you still find time in within everything else that you have to do, but the vlog side of things, I know you were really keen on that. And I guess just showing people the other side of racing, almost behind the scenes, which most often you don't get to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I started doing them a few years ago and got a really good reaction to them. I think because I was showing things that, you know, the average Joe wouldn't see. And I've continued to make them myself. It's just so hard trying to find the time. I mean, at the TT last year, it was just, honestly, we had for 2 weeks of like 16-hour, 18-hour days. We just did not stop from sort of if we weren't on circuit, we were changing engines and the constant delays. And I just never, ever got a second to take a breath, really. But I do try and give something back like that, just to, like you say, so people can see something they're not used to seeing, and then it's just a bit interesting and a bit different as well now. And we've seen the last couple of years, like the growth of YouTube and things like that. I think people are consuming content in a much different way than they used to now. I mean, a lot of people would sit and watch YouTube over watching the TV nowadays. So there's definitely room for growth there, definitely.
So what you need is your own little camera person, clearly. So if anybody's interested.
Yeah, I had a guy from the Isle of Man helping me a couple of years ago, James. He was a great help, but it's just trying to find the time and to try. I mean, I struggle to get a budget together to run myself, let alone pay for any sort of added luxuries like that. So it's really difficult to be able to offer anyone any money, but I was incredibly grateful to him. I've sort of the last couple of years, I've just done it myself with a pretty basic setup, but I think they seem to come out okay, to be honest.
It's okay. You can air fry anything any camera person might want. So they'll be absolutely fine.
I can offer you some air fried chips.
Are there any ongoing sponsors that you wanted to give a mention to?
Yeah, so I had great support last year from some guys I used to work with, actually, called the Logic Eye Group, which are an engineering consultancy based in Yarm near me. I had really good support last year from them, and Jonathan Copeland at Jackson and Copeland Lettings. He's a family friend that's been with me for years, who is always over supporting. Tees Linen, Kev Little Motorsport, Tony Leach lent me an engine for my Super Twin. Angus and Tracy McMahon, Duncan Laidler. I've had some great support from those guys, and I can't thank them all enough.
And if anybody is listening, Jack, and they think they'd like to get behind you, how is the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, of course. I think my Facebook page is probably the best place to message me. I think my email address is on there. My phone number should be. And there's also just some interesting content, which is just Jack Fowler Racing. If you search that on Facebook, and you can scroll down and see everything from years and years gone by. And like you say, those vlogs you mentioned and some cool pictures and stuff are on there. But that would be the best way to find me. And
we have talked to many people on this podcast, Jack, who are within months now of doing their first ever race on the mountain course at MGP 2026. And I know, obviously, 2018, a little while ago since your debut here, but would there be something that you think is the best piece of advice that you'd be able to give to anyone in that position?
it's one thing that I'm really keen on trying to help is newcomers, whether that be TT or Manx. Because I know it's a lot, you know, as we spoke about the mental challenge and the nerves, it is really difficult. And when I stop racing, it's actually something I might look to get into on a more serious level. But in terms of advice, just God, there's so much. Just try and relax and enjoy the experience, I think would be the biggest thing for me. When I look back at what I've done in the last few years, I think there's been a lot of times where I've not sat back, taken a breath and enjoyed it enough. I've always been chasing the next thing, which is to my detriment, really. I think anyone that steps foot on that course has something about them. They're taking on an enormous challenge, and just try and enjoy every second. And I can say relax and don't be nervous, but everyone's going to be nervous. Certainly the first year you do it, just do not set any goals, because there is so many variables there. But your biggest goal is to stand in that beer tent at the end of your last race with a big smile on your face, to be honest.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I think enjoying the process is probably a really good piece of advice to anybody, even if they're looking ahead to maybe MGP 2027. You can just get so hung up on what your ultimate aim is that actually you forget to enjoy the fact.
People get too hung up on lap times, I think, is a big one. They're sort of always thinking like, oh, well, that's my goal, and then I nearly did that, and then I'll hopefully do this next year. You need to just enjoy it, because there's so many variables, you know. And I mean, I came over to watch the Manx last year, and the weather was just unbelievable, wasn't it? It was just amazing. But equally the year before it wasn't, so you just don't know what you're getting. So just try and enjoy the moment for now, and then plan for the future once you're back home and you've unwound from it, really.
And just thinking about goals then and aims, I know obviously you wouldn't have set yourself one for your first TT. Do you have one in mind now?
Yeah, I do really. I've got like a speed I'm not superstitious, but I've got a speed in my mind that I'd like to do. And that I should be doing now as well. And it's a realistic goal, and it's nothing too stupid, but I try and sort of structure my goals a little bit to be. So I think I've probably got 3. I think the first one is to finish, which sounds a bit basic, but it is an achievement in itself just to finish any race round there. Second one is to always get a replica, which can be quite hard in the super sport, because you're up against like Michael Dunlop, for example, that's always stretching the speeds. And then my sort of main goal is a particular lap time that I'm going to keep in my head, because I'm not superstitious, but I guess I am in a way, if I'm not going to say it out loud. So yeah, I sort of try and structure it a little bit like that and just take it as it comes. You know, like I say, sometimes certain things are out of your control, and I feel like the goal I've got I would have achieved quite comfortably now, but we've just had a rough couple of years of weather, really.
And when you do achieve that speed, will we all know about it?
Yeah, I guess I'd be happy enough to say it.
Going to get it tattooed on yourself somewhere? We were talking to David Datzer last week. That's his plan.
Yeah, was it Nathan Harrison did that last year?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, it looked really good. Yeah, I might do, but I think, it's just the TT's so fast now that like the speeds that the top guys are doing probably makes what I'm doing sound quite inferior. So it maybe might not reach tattoo status, but I do have the circuit and the 3 legs of man tattooed on my forearm, actually. So.
Oh, what did you say? I thought you said forehead then.
No, my upper arm.
Just so you can see in the mirror.
If I did 135 mile an hour, I'd probably get it tattooed on my forehead. I'd be that ecstatic with it.
And just a couple of final questions. You mentioned sort of replicas and whatever, and I just wonder where you keep your trophies.
Yeah, well, actually, so I keep them in my garage, which sounds like the kind of banished to the garage, but I've got quite a nice garage. It's probably cleaner than my front room, to be honest. It's carpeted and painted and really nice. So I keep them in there because it is quite a nice room, and my wife would be happy enough with the replicas being in the house, to be honest. But I've got a place for them in there, like next to some old leathers and that sort of stuff.
Lovely. And we'll put the contact details for you on the podcast page. So hopefully somebody's listening who thinks actually it would be great to get behind you. Finally, what is the weirdest thing you've ever put in your air fryer?
God, good question.
No judgment.
Yeah, we have if anyone's from like the northeast, we've got a takeaway that's called a chicken parmo. It's like a greasy, deep fried chicken thing, which it is good. It sounds horrendous saying it out loud, but
it really does.
Probably reheating one of them hungover is probably the worst thing I've done in there.
Right. Well, I'm just probably not going to bother offering to do your camera work now. You can keep your air fryer for yourself, Jack.
Yeah, I've not sold it there, have I?
It's been brilliant catching up with you again. We wish you all the very best for the 2026 season, and we'll see you back here at TT.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Jack Fowler. And if, unlike me, you were sold by the contents of his air fryer and would like to help him out at TT, maybe doing some video or social media, he really would love to hear from you. All his social media links are on the podcast page, so do give him a follow. And we'll catch up with Jack again when he's back over on the Isle of Man. Well, thank you so much to listening to this episode of Startline, brought to you by the Manx Motorcycle Club. If you would like to be involved in a future episode, you can find me on social media, or you can drop me an email. It's beth@startline.im. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.